Baby girl, you're dribbling on my Spirit jersey. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. Before we went off to Orlando, I asked you guys to leave any questions that you had in the comments while I was away. I didn't answer any comments while we were away just because I didn't want to be looking at my phone. We were on a family holiday and I just wanted to be present, and I did get quite a few comments. I'm not gonna lie, I did have a little sneaky peek at some of them and a little read through, but I thought in this video I would just answer any of the questions that you guys asked while I was away. First of all, yes. First of all, I just want to thank you all for all of your really lovely comments, wishing us well on our holiday, hoping we'd had a really nice time, which we did. You might have already seen my trip report that I posted a few videos ago, and in that I might have actually already answered some of these questions here. However, I'm well aware that that video was over an hour long, so if you did have a specific question, I wouldn't expect you to kind of watch a full hour-long video to get the answer to one question. As I was kind of just going through my comments, I did just screenshot any that I noticed had questions within them. So the first question: how many steps did you put in each day in Orlando? When I'm there, I easily put in 19,000 to 20,000. Enjoy the remainder of your holiday. Thank you. We had an amazing holiday. I didn't actually take my Fitbit with me, so I didn't track my steps exactly. However, I know we put a lot of steps in. There were a couple of days that we decided to walk to Publix at the end of our resort, and then one day we even decided to walk to the steakhouse, which was just outside of our resort. From our apartment to the edge of the resort was actually 2.4 miles, and we walked there and back. So the day that we went to the steakhouse, we walked there, we walked back, so that alone is almost 5 miles. And then we had also been walking around Epcot in the morning, so I know for a fact we put in a lot of steps. I just can't tell you exactly how many. The boys were troopers. They did brilliantly with the walk-in. Luckily their shoes stayed nice and comfortable. The only mishap we had with blisters was on one of these walks to Publix. Marley decided he wanted to wear his slides, and they did rub his toes a little bit. Luckily he's not far off my shoe size. His feet are actually a little bit bigger than mine, despite the fact that he's 11. But we did swap shoes for a bit because mine were much more comfortable, so I let him wear my shoes for a leg of the journey, and then the shuttle bus did go past us, so we managed to catch that the rest of the way back. But it was nice to be walking around, to be honest. I didn't begrudge all of the walking. I actually really enjoyed it. The next question was, does she like the water? And by she, I'm assuming you mean Avery. She loved the water. She became a real water baby, and we had a lazy river in the resort that we were staying in, and Avery would love to just go around this lazy river, and it was quite a long lazy river with lots of different ways that you could go, and every now and again there were these waterfalls, and it was quite a bit of water coming down in these waterfalls, and she just loved going through them. I think she liked the feel of water on her face. She liked the feel of the water splashing her. She liked the sea as well. Unfortunately, the sea at Clearwater Beach, it was a little bit too rough to actually take her way out. We did kind of take her out for a little bit, and then we quickly realised that the waves were just too rough. So I ended up sitting on the kind of edge of the sea with her and kind of let the tide sort of lap at her feet and stuff, and she seemed to really enjoy that as well. She was really happy in the water. Obviously it helped that it was so hot, so I imagine it probably felt quite refreshing for her as well. But I'm glad. It was definitely a nice experience being able to do so much swimming with Avery. And the boys, they barely left the water if we were by the pool. They loved it in there. The next question was, is it hot? The first week was definitely hotter than the second. The first week I think we hit highs of 32 degrees Celsius. Very, very hot. The second week was still hot, but it was a bit more comfortable. It was, I'd probably say maybe around 28, 29 degrees. So much more comfortable, but still very, very hot. There was only one day where I felt a little bit of a chill through the daytime, and that was our second day at Hollywood Studios, and I think it was because it was very, very windy, so every time the wind caught me it was a little bit like, ooh, that's a little bit colder than I'm used to. But as soon as kind of the middle of the day came, the breeze was pretty much gone and it was back to being scorching again. But we all coped really well in the heat, Avery especially. We did have fans and cooling towels for her to keep her nice and cool. and to be honest, she seemed to thrive in the heat. I'm guessing with dystonia and muscle disorders and movement disorders, your body can ache quite a bit, and I know that the colder it is, the worse that can get. I mean, I know that I ache in the cold, and I don't have any kind of muscle problems as far as I know, but even I ache in the cold, so it must have been really, really nice for her to have that warmth on her body all the time. The next comment that had a question: love how you matched all the outfits. Hope you and your family enjoyed your much deserved Disney trip. Can't wait to hear about how it went. Did everything go as planned? How did Avery go on the plane? Yes, I'd probably say for the most part everything went as planned. There obviously were a few things in terms of our actual daily plans that changed, but you know, we allowed for that anyway. We knew that our kind of schedule wasn't going to be 100% set. If we couldn't change our minds if we wanted to, it just wouldn't have been fun. So for example, the day that Josh was really badly blistered, we were supposed to go to Universal Studios. Josh wouldn't have been able to enjoy it because he wouldn't have been able to go on the rides comfortably, so instead we decided to spend the day at the pool, and that was great because it was Avery's happy place. The boys absolutely loved the pool, and it was actually nice to have that kind of impromptu rest day that we hadn't planned. I think we needed it without realizing that we actually needed it. And then we spent the evening in City Walk, and we were nice and refreshed at that point because we'd spent all day by the pool, so it was really, really nice to be able to change the plans. But in terms of everything I had planned in terms of Avery's medical side of things and what we took and you know, what we'd prepared for different scenarios, everything pretty much went as planned. So I think in terms of everything I took, it was all just enough. We pretty much used almost everything that we took with us. The fan and the cooling towel were an absolute lifesaver. They did keep Avery cool enough. But again, like I said, I think she enjoyed the heat. I was very prepared in terms of all of Avery's medicines and whatnot. We took all of her bottles of medicines to each park just in case they were checked. They were only checked on the first day, and then the rest of the time they didn't really check them. I think it was just the way we had decided to go through security. On the first day we had everything in the pushchair, so they wanted to check everything that was in the pushchair. After that we realised it was much easier for Josh to carry the bags in and then put them on the pushchair afterwards, and they didn't want to check them then because they'd gone through the machine. So yeah, long story short, everything definitely went as planned, and Avery was absolutely amazing. She was just so easy. I think what helped is she was very content in the pushchair there. Now this isn't like her, so again, I don't know if it was because of the heat that made her more comfortable. We do have a little slot in our pushchair where we can put a phone and she can watch it, so we did do that a lot of the time. I think our trip entirely would have looked completely different if Avery wasn't so content, because obviously we would have had to kind of navigate around that and just make sure that she wasn't getting too unhappy or distressed. I'm making you sound like a right princess, aren't I? But she was a real trooper. She was happy to be in the pushchair a lot of the time. We were even able to go on a lot of rides and do rider swap. It never felt as though we had to leave somewhere because Avery wasn't happy. She really, really was brilliant. And in the same little screenshot, I have another question actually. Have a great time. Do you get extra allowance for Avery's medical bits and fees? So we did do a special assistance booking for Avery with our airline. We flew with Virgin. They were really, really helpful. I'm not gonna lie, especially if you were watching my vlogs before we went to Orlando, you'll know all this, but the last month was incredibly difficult. After Avery had her last admission with her last seizure, it kind of changed the game for a lot of things. Our insurance went up massively, and our doctor had to fill out a med form for the airline, which is essentially like a fit to fly. We did have some of the air staff, I'm not sure what you'd call them, it was kind of like the check-in staff. We had them ask if she was fit to fly, and you know, I reassured them like, yeah, we've had a form to confirm that she is fit to fly. But all in all, special assistants were brilliant. They did as much as they could within reason, I suppose. And yes, we did get some extra allowance, although we didn't need it. We could have had an extra 10 kilograms in hand luggage to accommodate for all of Avery's feed. Now, say for example we were not traveling with so many suitcases and we decided to do it as light as possible and just take hand luggage, for example, because I know there's a lot of people that do that. There's a lot of people that travel with just a backpack. 10 kilograms would not have covered all of Avery's things, but luckily we did have a lot of luggage allowance, and we didn't need the extra 10 kilos. We actually travelled with less than our allowance and the same back. I think we travelled with one less suitcase, and we all could have had way more hand luggage. That was just a part of our package, but the answer to the question is yes, we could have had an extra 10 kilograms extra in our hand luggage to accommodate for Avery's medical supplies. The next question was on my stroller organisation and what's in my park back video, and the question was, can't you sit up and recline? I'm assuming you mean can't the pushchair, the stroller, sit up and recline? Yes, it can. It was fully reclinable. As a matter of fact, a lot of the time Avery was happiest being fully reclined, I guess because she likes to be on the floor so much at home. It felt similar to that for her, but yes, you can fully sit it up and fully recline it. The next question was actually already answered by somebody else, but it was about the grey nappy caddy, the grey box that we used under the pushchair to keep our pushchair and our shopping basket under the pushchair organised. And someone said your grey box may or may not be allowed in the park. Usually parks in the US prefer clear bags. It's okay, baby girl. I know it's not really a question, but I just wanted to address it in case anyone else was thinking of doing the same. Disney had absolutely no problem with it. None of the parks did. And it was really handy actually, because we could just lift the entire thing out of the pushchair through security and then pop it back in, and nothing was kind of disheveled or unorganized. So I definitely recommend that little tip, to take a nappy caddy as a stroller organizer. It was really, really good. The next question is, stroller the new word for pushchair? So I'm assuming that comment was written by a fellow Brit, because here in the UK we do call them pushchairs. Stroller's just the American word for a pushchair, and I think that I've just gotten so used to calling it a stroller because we've been in preparation for this trip, and I tried to make myself aware of what words are used in replacement of the words we use here in the UK, because I've heard that people can go to America and ask where the toilets are, and they look at you quite strange because it's a restroom out there. They don't really call them toilets. It's the same as if I was to walk into a shop and ask if they had any jumpers. I imagine I'd be pointed to something completely different to what I was after. The next one wasn't a question, but it is just something I wanted to kind of read out, because this person made a very, very good argument, a very, very good point. And she's absolutely right, so I did just want to read it out. And it is, just in case someone's budget doesn't stretch to all these extras, no, your kids will enjoy Disney with regular clothes, no lanyards, pins, backpacks, wallets, fanny packs, etc. They don't need to buy anything. You can bring snacks and sandwiches in one family backpack. Parents will be able to carry kids' personal money, since kids do not go off on their own ever anymore. The rides were the attractions for my 4 boys and they loved it. This person is 100% right. Now, we saved for a very, very, very long time to make this the trip of a lifetime, but if Disney is, you know, something that you really, really want to do, but your budget doesn't extend to all of the little extras. Now, the extras are nice, don't get me wrong, but she's absolutely right. You definitely don't need them, and I'm sure you won't have any less of an amazing trip without all those little extras. You can have just as good a time, and really you are going for the attractions, and the attractions don't care what t-shirts you're wearing. So it is just something I wanted to make a point of there, because you guys know we did a lot of preparation. We bought a lot of those little extras for this trip, but you 100% don't need them. Next isn't really a question, but again, something I wanted to respond to because I didn't while I was away. You have to go on Soarin' at Epcot. It's the best ride in all the parks. Now, if you watched my trip report, the full hour of it, you would have heard that Epcot was a little bit of a flop for us. So we didn't end up going on Soarin'. We only actually went on 2 rides in the park. Actually, no, 3, that's a lie. 3 rides in the park. We went on the Finding Nemo ride. we went on Frozen, which was an absolute bust, and then on the way out we actually went on Ratatouille, just because it was another thing that Avery could go on, and we kind of wanted to make up for her not having a very good time on the Frozen ride. Yeah, we left after that and we didn't really go on anything else. It would have been nice to go on Soarin', because I've heard that it's kind of a similar style to Flight of Passage, and I absolutely loved Flight of Passage. But no, we didn't. We did also book a virtual queue for the Guardians of the Galaxy ride, but again, because we left, we missed that. The same thing happened with Tron. By the time our kind of boarding group was getting on the ride, we had already left. It didn't help the fact that both of our Magic Kingdom days and Epcot days, we forgot to try and join the virtual queue at 7 AM and we had to do it at 1 PM. But I don't really feel like I've missed out. I knew that we wouldn't be able to do everything, and I feel like we did a really good amount of stuff, and I am really happy with what we did. Again, these next couple aren't exactly questions, but they are things that I wanted to respond to. First one, make sure you don't put in that bag stuff that gets you in trouble in case it gets stolen, since it's open and accessible, or souvenirs. My nephew bought a toy and left it under the stroller seat. When he came back from a ride, it was gone. Maybe you can put food, water, snacks. So I wish you to have so much fun. You all deserve it, and you have thought of absolutely everything. Thank you so much. And yeah, you are absolutely right. However, we didn't have this problem because Avery's pushchair was wheelchair tagged, which means we never had to leave it unattended. We wouldn't have anyway, purely because there were medications under the pushchair, and one of them being a controlled med. We obviously didn't want that getting into the wrong hands, or, you know, a child coming across it and picking it up. It is so sad to think in a place like Disney things are taken out of strollers. It is really sad to think that, but sadly it does happen. But yeah, we didn't come across that problem or have that risk because we never left the pushchair unattended. And the next one, you might consider a small hand fan with a mister for the kids. Eli ended up purchasing one of those for himself. However, he didn't end up using it much while we were there because it was one of the ones you can get in Disney. If you've been to Disney, you've probably seen them. They're quite bulky, and literally within half an hour of him buying it, he was annoyed with carrying it, and that was kind of the rule. If you buy it, you carry it. So yeah, he did have it, and I think it was nice for him while he had it. But to be honest, the boys didn't really complain that they were hot too much, and we did make sure to kind of get them in and out of the pool a lot. And when Avery wasn't using one of the cool-in towels, me and the boys would share it between us, and we had plenty of water and kept hydrated and whatnot. So we managed just fine. Again, this is another one that isn't a question, but again, I wanted to read it out. I've never seen someone so prepared. You should make and sell holiday prep bags for Disneyland / Disney World. I'm serious. As a mum of 4, I would totally buy one. There is much more to that comment, but just for the sake of reading it to you guys, that is a very, very good idea. Now, I'm not sure if I've got the time to take on a venture like that. However, market opening right there, guys. Somebody jump on it, because that is a really, really good idea. She mentioned something about making kits specifically for children with autism and cerebral palsy, which is a really good idea, because you could have the ID bands or the kind of lanyards for hidden disabilities and fidget toys and things like that. So it is a very, very good idea. I just don't think I've got the time to take on that kind of business venture at the moment. Maybe when Avery goes to school or something, I will have a rethink. The next one, again, not so much a question, but kind of is, and this isn't actually Disney related. So in my video where I kind of prepped in terms of self-care for the trip, I talked about my leave-in moisturizer, and I said that I thought it was for African hair, and this person said, I'm African American and that product is definitely for black hair. I've used it before, it should be very moisturizing. Let me know how you like it. I really, really like it. I figured it was probably for African hair purely because of the branding. But yeah, you can buy it on Amazon. It's really, really inexpensive, and it is incredibly moisturizing. I need the tiniest amount, so that tub will probably last me for years. Someone else asked, how was it like traveling on a long haul flight with a medically compromised child / baby? Sorry about the beeping, that's Avery's feed machine. Did they provide a bassinet for Avery to sleep, and was it easy doing Avery's medication and feeds on the flight? Also, did Avery cope well with the long flight? I'm glad this question was asked, to be honest, because in my trip report I don't think I really went into too much detail on kind of the medicine side of things as well. As I've said before, the flight, the airport, the entire process was relatively easy, but because we were prepared. For the airport, for security, they did ask for the medical documentation to prove the medications were what they were for. Obviously I had it, so that is definitely something to do. 100% take proof just in case, because I'm not sure what they would have done if we didn't have that proof. Maybe confiscated it. Did they provide a bassinet? They planned to. The reason why we were sat in bulkhead seats, I've not mentioned that in this video, but I did in my trip report. We were in bulkhead seats because that's where the bassinets go. However, Avery was too long. So she did bring one out, the air hostess, and we tried Avery in it, and she said because her legs were dangling over, they couldn't allow her to use it. But what they did do is go and fetch some pillows from first class so Avery could lay on them, because we had quite a big bit of space on the floor in front of us, and you guys know Avery loves to be on the floor. She brought out a load of first class pillows for Avery to lay on and make just a little comfortable spot for her. So this little baby got some first class treatment, which was really, really nice. In terms of Avery's medication, what I did was I took all of the obviously medicine bottles. Everything I took I put in hand luggage in terms of meds, and then I took a good amount of feed in hand luggage as well, just in case, God forbid, some of the luggage got lost and we needed to manage with what was left in the hand luggage. So yeah, all of the meds were in their original packaging, in their bottles, fully labelled with Avery's name and date of birth and whatnot, the labels that the doctors put on there for you. That was all in the hand luggage. It all had to come out through security. It all got tested and checked, and then it all went back in. Once we were past security, I then drew up all of her medications for the flight into syringes, and that was probably the best thing I did, because trying to get through all the bags, get all the meds out, draw everything into syringes and manage Avery on the plane where everything's quite confined would have been really, really difficult. So what we did after security was just headed somewhere for breakfast. We ate at a really nice little cafe called EL&N in Heathrow Airport, and while we were waiting for our breakfast, I just got the carry-on suitcase out, I laid it on the table, and I just drew up all of her meds. I put them all in a Tupperware container and popped them in our little kind of personal bag, and then I had that to hand with me whenever she needed a med. Her med times were all ski whiff because of the time difference, so what we actually did is we changed them by an hour about 2 to 3 days before we went, and then over 5 hours we would just change the med times by an hour. So by the time it was about 2 days into our trip, we were back in normal times in terms of the meds, and then we did the same thing on the way back. Her G-tube, the button extension, we left on her for the entire day. I did tape it down to her because I knew it would be quite difficult finding somewhere to clean it in between uses, so we just left it on her the entire flight. And yeah, I had all the meds to hand, and once all that was done, obviously, you know, it takes a bit of time to get it all done, but once it was done, the rest of the day was really easy in terms of giving Avery all of her meds. And her feed, we used the mobile backpack, so we're quite used to doing that anyway, so that was also really easy. Avery coped incredibly well with the flight. On the way there, it was a day flight, and I think we spent the time shifting between watching things on the iPad. I had downloaded some of Avery's favourite things from CBeebies, so she had that to watch. She spent a mix in the go-to seat and in my arms. Takeoff and landing were probably what I was most worried about, because I knew that she had to be in her seat and I wasn't allowed to get her out, but she surprised me. She did really, really well. As long as you kind of distracted her a little bit, she was perfectly fine. She also had a nap on the way there, which was helpful, and then for part of the trip, literally like an hour or so, me and Josh actually swapped, so I went and sat next to Zach and had a little bit of rest, and Josh sat with Avery. But honestly, between kind of the feeds and the meds and switching up what we were doing and changing her, and at one point I changed her into her pyjamas, the flight flew by, the full 9 hours flew by, which was nice. and the flight back was actually an overnight flight, and Avery slept the entire way back, which was really nice. I gave her last feed and she fell asleep. We put her into the go-to seat. Luckily it was quite reclined because there was enough room on the seat to do that, and we put a SATS monitor on and she slept until we landed. It was really, really lovely. And the last question, glad you had a good trip. How did you find Avery's routine change with the time difference, feeds, meds, etc.? So like I said, I'll explain it in a little bit more detail here. Like I said, we changed it over 5 days. So for example, if Avery had a medicine at 7 AM, the following morning I gave it to her at 8 AM, and then the following morning I gave it to her at 9 AM, and the third day was travel day. So by the time we actually got into Orlando on the 4th day of changing the meds, the med only actually needed to be an hour early. So we gave it to her 6 AM, and then the following day it was back to normal at 7 AM. So that's what we did on the way there, and then on the way back we just reversed it. So we started giving it to her an hour earlier, and then by the time we flew home we only had to give her meds an hour later on the first day, and then on the second day we could go back to normal. It was easy enough. I will say I needed to write down all of the times and then reference them as I was doing that process, because I never would have remembered to give her the meds. I wouldn't have remembered what day I was on, how many hours difference there was meant to be, but with having it written down, it was all really fine. Avery didn't seem to have any kind of reaction. And in terms of her feeds, on the way there she ended up having an extra feed because by the time we got there, even though she would have already had her last feed in the UK, it was still quite early in the US, so I did use that opportunity to give her an extra feed. A few extra calories wouldn't hurt. On the way back, on our travel day home, she had her normal amount of feeds, but the following day, I'm assuming because of jet lag, she actually slept the entire way through her first feed. She didn't actually wake up until just before her second feed was due. So I didn't try replacing that first feed. I just gave her 3 feeds that day, and I just thought to myself, it kind of balances out over the last 2 weeks because of the extra feed she had on our travel day there. So yeah, it all went fine. I'm not sure if I could say it would have been the same had I have not kind of planned everything and written all of my lists and written everything down. I mean, you guys know I planned everything. I had a list on my phone of what the boys were wearing every day, and let me tell you, that helped me every day, because every single morning I just looked at my phone, saw what they were wearing and got their outfits out. Because when you have to do that for 4 children and yourself, it can get a little bit much trying to think of outfits. But I'd already written them down, so I planned absolutely everything. But in saying that, we had 2 years to wait. I was very excited. I felt like I didn't want to wait so long, so having all those little bits to plan and prepare and all of those lists to write and the notes to jot down, it kept me kind of grounded, because I knew I still had a long way to go before the trip, and these things were just the things that were kind of filling up my time, so that it didn't drive me insane that I still had, you know, 1.5 years to wait. So I really didn't mind that I had to do so much preparation. I had a long time to do it, so it didn't feel like it was a chore or anything. It was actually quite exciting. I would definitely say all of the planning and the preparation that I did, it all helped in some way or another. So I hope that answers all of your questions. If you do have any more, leave them below. I am back to answering comments now, so I can just answer you in the comment section. And oh, baby girl, are you crying because of what I'm about to say? This is actually the last installment of our Orlando playlist. Our little Orlando series. It is now over and it's time to put that chapter to bed, isn't it, Pudding? Maybe one day we will get to go again. I really, really hope so, because we were all just so happy out there. But for now, it's done and it is back to normal content. What do you think, Puds? You got the hiccups? So if you enjoyed the video, then give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to check out the entire Orlando playlist if you are interested, or if you're planning a trip to Orlando yourselves. And with all that said, I will see you guys in a few days with another video. Bye guys.